Hey, welcome everybody. It seems to be working. Hold on. Yeah, microphone is recording and everything is broadcasting. So we last left off at 2:58 Pacific Eastern Time with the hearings, the fourth hearing. So we're going to watch the end of the gentlemen's, or are we going to watch the beginning of the ladies'? I'm not even sure where we are right now. So I left and went and had a lovely lunch with my good friend Rodney from up in the Seattle zone. And now we're going to continue. So if you are just watching this broadcast and you didn't see the first part of the hearings with Raffens-Burger and not Kemp, who else was there? Gabe and Rusty from Arizona. Go back and watch that. That's part one. This is part two. And this is, of course, the hearings number 4. It is the 21st, Tuesday the 21st of June. Let's get right into it. Here we go.
Quote, President Trump, at real Donald Trump, is a genuinely good man. He does not really like to fire people. I bet he dislikes putting people in jail, especially quote unquote Republicans. He gave at Brian Kemp, Georgia, and at Georgia Secretary of State every chance to get it right. They refused. They will soon be going to jail. So why?
Okay, so Stephanie has a question there. Did you test your friend before lunch, Kevin? Didn't eat inside. Of course not. In fact, we went to one place, and they have a patio, but they didn't have any waitstaff for the patio. And my friend Rodney said, oh, that's okay. We'll just eat inside. I said, no. So we went. The same restaurant has another branch about 4 blocks away, and so we went and ate at that one. By the way, if you're in the Burbank area, in North Hollywood area, Salsa and Beer, fantastic Mexican place. First we went to Salsa and Beer number 2, and then we went over to Salsa and Beer number 4. They're all over the place, and they're fantastic. And the amount of food, that wow! I had 2 enchiladas and a beef taco combo. It was $12.99 or $14.99, something like that. But all I could eat was the beef taco. That was enough to fill me up for lunch. So I have another 8 days worth of food. So I'll be bringing that on the plane with me when I fly anywhere. For the next 6 or 7 months. So delicious. Salsa and Beer. Let's get going with this. What happened? Okay, Stephanie, you broke it. Give me a second. Let's go back to where we were here. I nailed the exact time, and then suddenly I was rudely interrupted. That's still the guys. Oh, we're almost there. Let's go back 1 more minute, and there we go. That's where we were. Let's go back to this. By the way, this is Lynn Wood. He's an attorney who he's the one who told everybody not to vote in the next election because they're all rigged and the Republicans will never win. So he told Republicans not to vote out of protest. Smart. But here he is. This is way back when, right after the election. And he says in here that Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger will soon be going to jail. They did not.
So on your call, this was not the first time the president was suggesting you might be criminally liable. With that, let's listen to this portion of the call.
I think you're going to find that they are shredding ballots because they have to get rid of the ballots because the ballots are unsigned. The ballots are
The ballots are never signed. You don't sign your ballot. This guy never voted. You don't sign your ballot. It's a secret ballot. The envelope is what you sign. And not even in every state, by the way. It's different in every state.
corrupt. And they're brand new and they don't have seals. And there's a whole thing with the ballots. But
there is not.
Ballots are corrupt. And you're going to find that they are, which is totally illegal. It's more illegal for you than it is for them.
I really wish. I thought that Secretary Raffensperger handled himself very well on these phone calls. I really wish that Trump would run into a brick wall at some point, who just point by point, in the middle of his talking, I don't care if he's a president. I have a conversation with any president. There's no kings in this country. I'm just as important as President Trump. No, that doesn't make any sense. Donald, listen to me. You don't sign your ballot. Have you ever signed your ballot? No, you signed the envelope for the ballot. What you're saying is crazy, Donald. No, that's not. No, we looked into it. There are not dead people. Now, Brad did a little bit of that, but I wish somebody would just get in his face, as we saw with Jonathan Swan, where he had the paperwork, he had the receipts right there. But Mr. Trump, you didn't. And for some reason, Trump didn't walk out of that interview. He walked out. NPR called him out after the election, and he walked out of the NPR interview.
Them, because you know what they did, and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal. That's a criminal offense, and you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk.
Secretary.
So mafia.
Raffensperger, after making a false claim about shredding of ballots, the president suggested that you may be committing a crime by not going along with his claims of election fraud. And after suggesting that you might have criminal exposure, President Trump makes his most explicit ask of the call. Let's play a part of that conversation.
All we need is 11,800.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Which is one more than what we have.
Because we won the state.
Mr. Secretary.
Right there is enough for any jury to convict. Here's the problem. This country now is so corrupted that in the case of, remember the Build the Wall people who took a bunch of money from Trump supporters to build the wall on their own and swindled them out of millions of dollars? One of those gentlemen, Steve Bannon, was part of that. He was pardoned by Trump. One of those gentlemen who was not pardoned by Trump had a mistrial. 11 votes on the jury for guilty. One, who's a big Trump fan, refused, even though the evidence is just clearly laid out. They had emails, they had voicemails, they had this guy admitting this is what they were doing. Mistrial. They're going to try it again. But they got a mistrial because there was one Trump supporter on that jury. And that's all it takes on a jury. Now, on the other hand, you've got somebody like Brad Sussman, who was the Durham investigation went after, remember, the Clinton lawyer, and it was unanimously not guilty. Not one, and it's a mistrial, and he should have been guilty, blah, blah, blah. Unanimously, there's nothing to this case. It's ridiculous.
Was the president here asking you for exactly what he wanted? One more vote than his opponent.
What I knew is that we didn't have any votes to find. We had to continue to look. We investigated, like I just shared the numbers with you. There were no votes to find. That was an accurate count that had been certified. And as our general counsel said, there was no shredding of ballots.
Mr. Secretary, after making this request, the president then goes back to the danger of having you deny these allegations of fraud. Let's listen to that part of the clip.
And I watched you this morning, and you said, well, there was no criminality, but I mean, all of this stuff is very dangerous stuff. When you talk about no criminality, I think it's very dangerous for you to say that.
Secretary Raffensperger, you wrote about this in your book, and you said, quote, I felt then and still believe today that this was a threat. Others obviously thought so too, because some of Trump's more radical followers have responded as if it was their duty to carry out this threat.
Duty.
Please tell us what you, your wife, even your daughter-in-law experienced regarding threats from Trump's more radical followers.
Well, after the election, my email, my cell phone was doxxed, and so I was getting text all over the country, and then eventually my wife started getting the text, and hers typically came in as sexualized texts, which were disgusting. You have to understand that Trish and I, we met in high school, and we've been married over 40 years now, and so they started going after her, I think, just to probably put pressure on me. Why don't you just quit, walk away? And so that happened, and then some people broke into my daughter-in-law's home, and my son has passed, and she's a widow and has 2 kids. And so we're very concerned about her safety also.
Wow.
And Mr. Secretary, why didn't you just quit and walk away?
Because I knew that we had followed the law and we had followed the Constitution. And I think sometimes moments require you to stand up and just take the shots when you're doing your job. And that's all we did. You know, We just followed the law and we followed the Constitution. And at the end of the day, President Trump came up short. But I had to be faithful to the Constitution. And that's what I swore an oath to do.
During the remainder of the call, the former president continued to press you to find the remaining votes that would ensure his victory in Georgia. Let's listen to a little more.
Why wouldn't you want to find the right answer, Brad, instead of keep saying that the numbers are right? So look, can you get together tomorrow? And Brad, we just want the truth. It's simple. And everyone's going to look very good if the truth comes out. It's okay. It takes a little while, but let the truth come out. And the real truth is I won by 400,000 votes, at least. So what are we going to do here, folks?
We just need 11,780 votes. The real truth, I won by 400. I won by 17 million votes. It's 6 billion. Some people say it could be high as 8 or 9 or 10 billion.
I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
Wow. Fellas!
4 days after the president's call to Secretary Raffens-Burger was January 6th. The president whipped up the crowd in front of the ellipse, once again promoting the allegation that Secretary Raffens-Burger, the president's own attorney general, had told him was false. Here he is on the ellipse.
In Fulton County, Republican poll watchers were ejected, in some cases physically, from the room under the false pretense of a pipe burst, water main burst, everybody leave, which we now know was a total lie. Then election officials pulled boxes, Democrats, and suitcases of ballots out from under a table. You all saw it on television, totally fraudulent, and illegally scanned them for nearly 2 hours, totally unsupervised. Tens of thousands of votes. This act coincided with a mysterious vote dump of up to 100,000 votes for Joe Biden, almost none for Trump. Oh, that sounds fair. That was at 1:34 a.m.
Mr. Secretary, Mr. Sterling, I want to thank you for your service to the state of Georgia and to the country. Speaker Bowers, likewise, I want to thank you for your service to the state of Arizona and to the country. You have served not only your home states, but our nation and our democracy. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff. I thank the witnesses for joining us today. You're now dismissed.
Okay, let's jump ahead here a little bit.
Moss worked in the Department of Registration. Andrea Shea Moss. Ms. Moss worked in the Department of Registration and Elections in Fulton County, Georgia, from 2017 until 2022. In that job, Ms. Moss handled voter applications and absentee ballot requests and also helped to process the vote count for several elections. In December 2020, Ms. Moss and her mother, Ms. Ruby Freeman, became the target of nasty lies spread by President Trump and his allies as they sought to overturn the election results in Georgia. Ms. Moss and her mother, Ms. Freeman, are two of the unsung heroes in this country, doing the hard work of keeping our democracy functioning for every American. Ms. Moss, welcome. Thank you for your service, and I thank you for being here today. I will now swear you in. Please stand. Do you swear or affirm on the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? Ms. Moss, thank you very much for being here today. I understand that you are here along with your mother today. Would you like to introduce your mama?
I like that.
Hi, Mom. Ms. Moss, today we'll be asking you about some of the threats that you received following the 2020 election. Since you've been an election worker for over 10 years, I want to ask you, in your decade of service, had you ever experienced threats like these before? Don't be nervous. I understand. So, and
I love those nails, by the way. Wow.
I want to make sure that the record reflects that you've done it for quite a while and you never received a threat. And your answer was no. Thank you. Pursuant to Section 5C8 of the House Resolution 503, the chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Schiff, for questions.
Good afternoon, Ms. Moss. Thank you for being here. I understand that you were employed by the Fulton County Registration and Elections Department for more than 10 years, and I understand that you love that job. Please tell us what made you so fond of the work that you did.
Well, I've always been told by my grandmother how important it is to vote, and how people before me, a lot of people, older people in my family, did not have that right. So what I loved most about my job were the older voters. Younger people could usually do everything from their phone or go online, but the older voters like to call, they like to talk to you, they like to get my card, they like to know that every election I'm here. And like even college students, a lot of parents trust in me to make sure their child does not have to drive home. They'll get an absentee ballot, they can vote, and I really found pleasure in that. I liked being the one that, you know, if someone can't navigate my voter page, or, you know, they want a new precinct card and they don't have a copy machine or a computer or all of that, I could put it in the mail for them. I was excited always about sending out all the absentee ballots for the elderly and disabled people. I even remember driving to an hospital to give someone her absentee application. That's what I love the most.
That's awesome.
So you really enjoyed helping people vote and participate, and that was something, the right to vote, that your grandmother taught you was precious.
Yes.
Well, I know the events that we're here to talk about today are incredibly difficult to relive. Your proud service as an election worker took a dramatic turn on the day that Rudy Giuliani publicized a video of you and your mother counting ballots on election night. President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and others claimed on the basis of this video that you and your mother were somehow involved in a plot to kick out observers, bring suitcases of false ballots for Biden into the arena, and then run them through the machines multiple times. None of that was true, was it?
None of it.
I'd like to show you some of the statements that Rudy Giuliani made in a second hearing before the Georgia state legislators, a week after that video clip from State Farm Arena was first circulated by Mr. Giuliani and President Trump. I want to advise viewers that these statements are completely false and also deeply disturbing.
Tape earlier in the day of Ruby Freeman and Shay Freeman Moss and one other gentleman quite obviously surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine.
What?
I mean, it's obvious to anyone who's a criminal investigator or prosecutor they are engaged in surreptitious illegal activity, again, that day.
Again, not allowed to practice law anymore in New York State. And I think D.C. as well, disbarred them.
And that's a week ago, and they're still walking around Georgia lying. They should have been should have been questioned already. Their places of work, their homes should have been searched for evidence of ballots, for evidence of USB ports, for evidence of voter fraud.
That video was from Rudy Giuliani's appearance at a Georgia State Senate hearing on December 10. How did you first become aware that Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, was accusing you and your mother of a crime?
I was at work, like always, and the former chief, Mr. Jones, asked me to come to his office. And when I went to his office, the former director, Mr. Barron, was in there, and they showed me a video on their computer. It was just like a very short clip of us working at State Farm, and it had someone on the video like talking over the video, just saying that we were doing things that we weren't supposed to do, just lying throughout the video. And that's when I first found out about it.
And were there social media posts that they showed you responding to those false claims?
Well, when I saw the video, of course, the first thing that I said was like, why? Why are they doing this? What's going on? And they, just told me that Trump and his allies were not satisfied with the outcome of the election, and they were getting a lot of threats and being harassed online, and asked me, have I been receiving anything, and I need to check on my mom. And I told them, I was like, where have they, where have you been getting these threats? I don't believe I have any. And Mr. Jones told me, like, they're attacking his Facebook, and I don't really use Facebook. I have one, so I went to the Facebook app, and I'm just kind of panicky at this point because this has never happened to me, and my mom is involved, and I'm like her only child. So I'm just asking him, like, well, where are the messages? All I see is the feeds. Like, how do you get to the messages? And he said, it's another icon on your phone that says Messenger. And I went to that icon, and it was just a lot of horrible things there.
Wow.
And those horrible things, did they include threats?
Yes, a lot of threats, wishing death upon me, telling me that, I'll be in jail with my mother, and saying things like, be glad it's 2020 and not 1920.
Were a lot of these threats and vile comments racist in nature?
A lot of them were racist. A lot of them were just hateful. But yes, sir.
In one of the videos we just watched, Mr. Giuliani accused you and your mother of passing some sort of USB drive to each other. What was your mom actually handing you on that video?
A ginger mint.
It wasn't just Rudy Giuliani.
Oh.
We heard President Trump make these false allegations repeatedly during his call with Secretary Raffens-Burger. Let's listen to a portion of what he had to say about you and your mother.
We had at least 18,000, that's on tape. We had them counted very painstakingly, 18,000 voters having to do with Ruby Freeman. She's a vote scammer, a professional vote scammer, and
professional vote scammer,
hustler,
and a hustler.
Donald Trump attacked you and your mother using her name 18 times on that call.
Jeez.
18 times. Ms. Moss, can you describe what you experienced listening to former President Trump attack you and your mother in a call with the Georgia Secretary of State?
I felt horrible. I felt like it was all my fault. Like, if I would have never decided to be an elections worker. Like, I could have done anything else, but that's what I decided to do. And now people are lying and spreading rumors and lies and attacking my mom. I'm her only child. Going to my grandmother's house. I'm her only grandchild. And my kid. It's just, I felt so bad. I just felt bad for my mom, and I felt horrible for picking this job and being the one that always wants to help and always there, and never missing out one election. I just felt like it was my fault for putting my family in this situation.
Well, it wasn't your fault.
And it was already hard to find enough election workers for the last election. Is anyone going to want to do the job this time around?
Your mother was kind enough to come speak with us earlier. Let's listen to her story in her words.
My name is Ruby Freeman. I've always believed that when God says that he'll make your name great, but this is not the way it was supposed to be. I could have never imagined the events that followed the presidential election 2020. For my entire professional life, I was Lady Ruby. My community in Georgia, where I was born and lived my whole life, knew me as Lady Ruby. I built my own business around that name, LaRuby's Unique Treasures.
I just want her hair to be ruby colored too. If you're gonna go with the purple, go. It's not an insult. I love the hair, digging it. But if it was also ruby, maybe she's wearing the slippers. I don't know, but I love her so far.
A pop-up shop catering to ladies with unique fashions.
Yeah.
I wore a shirt that proudly proclaimed that I was, and I am, Lady Ruby.
Lindsey Graham was one of our biggest customers.
Actually, I had that shirt on. I had that shirt in every color. I wore that shirt on Election Day 2020.
Man, I want a shirt in every color.
Since, and I'll never wear it again.
Oh, no, Lady Ruby.
Now I won't even introduce myself by my name anymore.
Oh, dear.
I get nervous when I bump into someone I know in the grocery store who says my name.
Uh-oh.
I'm worried about who's listening. I get nervous when I have to give my name for food orders. I'm always concerned of who's around me. I've lost my name, and I've lost my reputation. I've lost my sense of security, all because
This is her mother.
a group of people, starting with number 45 and his ally, Rudy Giuliani, decided to scapegoat me and my daughter, Shay, to push their own lies about how the presidential election was stolen.
There she is right there.
Ms. Moss, how has this experience of being targeted by the former president and his allies affected your life?
Here's a president that is so immature and so thin-skinned that he casts aspersions and blames the loss on Lady Ruby. To the point of endangering her life.
Her life.
It's turned my life upside down. I no longer give out my business card. I don't transfer calls. I don't want anyone knowing my name. I don't want to go anywhere with my mom because she might yell my name out over the grocery aisle or something. I don't go to the grocery store at all. I haven't been anywhere at all. I've gained about 60 pounds. I just don't do nothing anymore. I don't want to go anywhere. I second guess everything that I do. It's affecting my life in a major way, in every way, all because of lies. For me doing my job, same thing I've been doing forever.
Your mother also...
Is someone watching from Canada right now that has a guest house for these ladies or something? Somewhere where they can just live a normal life again? All because of a president who can't accept that he's so bad, that he's so terrible, that he was beaten by Joe Biden.
Also told the select committee about how she had to leave her own home for her safety and go into hiding after the FBI told her that it would not be safe for her there before January 6th and until the inauguration. Let's listen to a clip of her story in her own words.
Around the week of January 6th, the FBI informed me that I needed to leave my home for safety. And I left my home for safety around that time.
Understood. How long did you stay?
Do they put her in witness protection? Does the government cover her costs? Does the state of Georgia cover her costs?
Did you remain outside of your home for your own safety?
I stayed away from my home for approximately 2 months.
Wow.
It was horrible. I felt homeless. I felt,
This takes, by the way, this takes incredible courage for them to do this. Because they know now their faces are out there and this whole thing has a chance of beginning again for them. Stephanie says, my heart breaks for them. My heart breaks for them and my head is enraged for them. To have to put up with this because of a man who lost an election. Can you imagine Jimmy Carter doing this? Even George Bush Sr. No, it's just Donald Trump. It's the only president who was ever like this.
Oh, I can't believe this person has caused this much damage to me and my family. To have to leave my home that I've lived there for 21 years. And, I'm having to have my neighbors watch out for me, and I have to go and stay with somebody. It was hard. It was horrible.
And that your conversation with the FBI about needing to leave your home for your own safety or perhaps recommending it, do you remember, was there a specific threat that prompted that, or was it the accumulation of threats that you had received?
What prompted it was getting ready to January 6th was about to come, and they did not want me to be at home because of all the threats and everything that I had gotten. They didn't want me to be there in fear of, the people were coming to my home, and I had a lot of that, so they didn't want me to be there just in case something happened. I asked, how long am I going to have to be at home? And they said, at least until the inauguration.
Ms. Moss, I understand that people once showed up at your grandmother's house. Tell us about that experience.
Jesus.
I received a call from my grandmother. This woman is my everything. I've never even heard her or seen her cry ever in my life. And she called me screaming at the top of her lungs, like, Shay, oh my God, Shay, just freaking me out, saying that there were people at her home and they knocked on the door, and of course she opened it and seeing who was there, who it was, and they just started pushing their way through, claiming that they were coming in to make a citizen's arrest. They needed to find me and my mom. They knew we were there. And she was just screaming and didn't know what to do. And I wasn't there, so, I just felt so helpless and so horrible for her. And she was just screaming. I told her to close the door. Don't open the door for anyone. And You know, she's a 70-something, I won't say year-old woman, and she doesn't like having restrictions. She wants to answer the door. She likes to get her steps in, walking around the neighborhood, and I had to tell her, like, you can't do that. You have to be safe. You know, she would tell me that at night, people would just continuously send pizzas over and over to her home, you know, and they was expecting her to pay for these large amounts of pizzas. And
oh, God.
She went through a lot that she didn't have to. And once again, it made me just feel so horrible.
In addition to the personal impact this experience has had on you and your family, one of the things that I find most disturbing is how these lies discourage longtime election workers from continuing to do this important work. Tell us, if you would, of the other election workers shown in that State Farm Arena video and their supervisors. How many are still election workers in Fulton County?
There is no permanent election worker or supervisor in that video that's still there.
And did you end up leaving your position as well?
Yes, I left.
Ms. Moss, I want to thank you for coming in to speak with us and to thank you for your service to our democracy. What we have just played is a truly horrible and appalling sample, but just a sample of the things that were said about you and your mother following the election. I want to say how very sorry I think we all are for what you've gone through, and tragically, you're not alone. Other election workers around the country have also been the subject of lies and threats. No election worker should be subject to such heinous treatment just for doing their job. With your permission, I would like to give your mother the last word.
Yes.
We're just going to play the tape.
There is nowhere I feel safe. Nowhere. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you? The President of the United States is supposed to represent every American, not to target one. But he targeted me, Lady Ruby, a small business owner, a mother, a proud American citizen who stand up to help Fulton County run an election in the middle of the pandemic.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Thank you, Ms. Freeman, or as America now knows her, Lady Ruby, for your service to Fulton County, Georgia, our country, and our democracy. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff. Ms. Moss,
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for sharing with us the very troubling story of what you and your mother experienced. The harassment of election workers like you simply for doing your duty as public servants poses a threat to our democratic process. Your testimony is an important contribution to the work of our committee and serves as
and is a crime in many states.
a reminder to all of us that the safety of local election officials is vital to ensuring that our elections are always free and fair. I want to thank our witness for joining us today. The members of the Select Committee may have additional questions for today's witness, and we ask that you respond expeditiously in writing to those questions. Without objection, members will be permitted 10 business days to submit statements for the record, including opening remarks and additional questions for the witness. Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Schiff, for a closing statement.
For more than 200 years, our democracy has been distinguished by the peaceful transfer of power. When an American raises their right hand and takes the presidential oath of office, they are transformed from an ordinary citizen into the most powerful person in the world, the president. This is an awesome power to acquire. It is even more awesome when it is handed on peacefully. When George Washington relinquished the office of the presidency, it set a precedent that served as a beacon for other nations struggling against tyranny. When Ronald Reagan described it as a kind of miracle in the eyes of the world, he was exactly right. Other countries use violence to seize and hold power, but not in the United States, not in America. When Donald Trump used the power of the presidency to try to stay in office after losing the election to Joe Biden, he broke that sacred and centuries-old covenant. Whether his actions were criminal will ultimately be for others to decide. But what he did was, without a doubt, unconstitutional. It was unpatriotic, and it was fundamentally un-American. And when he used the power of his presidency to put the enormous pressure on state, local, and local elections officials and his own vice president, it became downright dangerous. On January 6th, that pressure became deadly. Ruby Freeman said the president is supposed to protect every American, not target them. And she is right. If the most powerful person in the world can bring the full weight of the presidency down on an ordinary citizen who is merely doing her job with a lie as big and heavy as a mountain, who among us is safe? None of us is. None of us. In city councils and town councils, on school boards and election boards, from the Congress to the courts, dedicated public servants are leaving their posts because of death threats to them and to their families. This is not who we are. It must not become who we are. Our democracy held because courageous people like those you heard from today put their oath to the Constitution above their loyalty to one man or to one party. The system held, but barely, and the question remains, will it hold again? If we are able to communicate anything during these hearings, I hope it is this. We have been blessed beyond measure to live in the world's greatest democracy. That is a legacy to be proud of and to cherish, but it is not one to be taken for granted. That we have lived in a democracy for more than 200 years does not mean we shall do so tomorrow. We must reject violence. We must embrace our Constitution with the reverence it deserves, take our oath of office and duties as citizens seriously, informed by the knowledge of right and wrong, and armed with no more than the power of our ideas and the truth, carry on this venerable experiment in self-governance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Cheney, for a closing statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Lady Ruby and Shay, thank you for your courage. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for being here today. It means so much for everyone to hear your story, so thank you for that. We have had tremendous testimony today. We've been reminded that we're a nation of laws, and we've been reminded by you and by Speaker Bowers and Secretary of State Raffens-Burger and Mr. Sterling that our institutions don't defend themselves. Individuals do that. And we've reminded that it takes public servants. It takes people who've made a commitment to our system to defend our system. We also have been reminded what it means to take an oath under God to the Constitution, what it means to defend the Constitution. And we were reminded by Speaker Bowers that our Constitution is indeed a divinely inspired document. And so it's been an honor to spend time with you and with our previous witnesses here today. To date, more than 30 witnesses called before this committee have not done what you've done, but have invoked their Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. Roger Stone took the Fifth, General Michael Flynn took the Fifth, John Eastman took the Fifth. Others, like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, simply refused to comply with lawful subpoenas, and they have been indicted. Mark Meadows has hidden behind President Trump's claims of executive privilege and immunity from subpoenas. We're engaged now in litigation with Mr. Meadows. The American people in our hearings have heard from Bill Barr, Jeff Rosen, Richard Donahue, and many others who stood up and did what is right. And they will hear more of that testimony soon. But the American people have not yet heard from Mr. Trump's former White House counsel, Pat Cipollone. Our committee is certain that Donald Trump does not want Mr. Cipollone to testify here. Indeed, our evidence shows that Mr. Cipollone and his office tried to do what was right. They tried to stop a number of President Trump's plans for January 6th. Today, and in our coming hearings, you will hear testimony from other Trump White House staff explaining what Mr. Cipollone said and did, including on January 6th. But we think the American people deserve to hear from Mr. Cipollone personally. He should appear before this committee, and we are working to secure his testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
People answer the call to public service in such different ways. Some run for office. Some volunteer to make sure their neighbors can get to their voting locations. Some work at polling sites to help election day go smoothly. Some look into problems to guarantee our elections are secure and accurate, just to name a few. As I mentioned at the start of this hearing, when we talk about our democratic institutions, we're talking about these individuals and many others who do these jobs across the country. They represent the backbone of our democracy at its most important moments, when the citizens cast their votes and when those votes are counted. We've heard the stories of their courage. They've earned the thanks of a grateful nation. But for Donald Trump, these witnesses and others like them were another roadblock to his attempt to cling to power. On Thursday, we'll hear about another part of that scheme, his attempt to corrupt the country's top law enforcement body, the Justice Department, to support his attempt to overturn the election. Just as we heard today that Donald Trump was deeply involved in a scheme to pressure state officials to overturn the election results, we will hear on Thursday that Donald Trump was also the driving force behind the effort to corrupt the Justice Department. Listen to this clip from the former acting Attorney General, Richard Donahue.
The president said, suppose I do this, suppose I replace him, Jeff Rosen, with him, Jeff Clark. What do you do? And I said, sir, I would resign immediately. There is no way I'm serving 1 minute under this guy, Jeff Clark.
You'll hear from Mr. Donahue in person on Thursday as my colleague, Mr. Kinzinger, presents details about this plan. The chair requests those in the hearing room remain seated until the Capitol Police have escorted members from the room. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
All right, so that's the end of the hearings for today. I'm just going through some of the coverage on Fox to see if anyone's actually talking about January 6th. I just went through the entire episode of The Five. Could not find any coverage on the January 6th here. It just don't exist. Let's see. Neil Cavuto had some coverage of it right there. It's not allowing me to play it on YouTube, but it is there. So we'll say goodbye for now. I was going to talk about what The Five was talking about, but they don't really seem to care about the hearings at all. So yeah, we'll go. Hold on, let me go live on Fox and see who's on right now. See if there's outnumbered. Oh, that's why, because the Five happened before. Okay, so yeah, right, the Five is in the morning. Outnumbered is now. Wait, no, the Five is now. What time is it? 3:21. Outnumbered. Yeah, this already happened. That was this morning. So the Five happens now. Hold on. What? That's 9 a.m. Oh, okay. YouTube is not giving me something that's up to date. Hold on. Give me a second here. And that might be the issue. Waiting. Got it. Here we go. Yeah, special report with Brett Baer's out right now, but they don't have panel discussion, so you don't get the crazies. No fun there. Jesse Waters' primetime is coming up at 4 o'clock, so he'll have a take on it. He always knocks down everything. I'm curious to see what the right's reaction is going to be to Shay Moss and her mother, and how they will ridicule them, or maybe they just won't mention them at all because they are very, very sympathetic characters. No movie night on Friday. I will be out of town, so no movie night Friday. But otherwise, maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it Sunday. Maybe we'll see. All right, kids. It's been good spending some time with you. Hopefully, you learned something today. I'm trying to think if there's anything in there that was a revelation. I was good to hear from Rusty Bowers, the Speaker of the House for the Arizona House. There's a guy, I probably don't agree with him on a lot of his political opinions, but he's a man of principle, and he's not going to do something that's illegal. We need more people like that. Unfortunately, fewer and fewer people like that are going to be running for elections. I need to move to Georgia or something, see if I can't get elected. All right, kids, take care of yourself. We will, Thursday, we'll be doing this for sure. And Thursday, I believe it starts at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. That's tentative. We'll cover that on Thursday, and we'll go from there. And let's see if there's anything else live right now that we need to take a look at. I don't see it, but over on AMC, Moneyball's on. So if you haven't seen Moneyball, go watch Moneyball. It's an interesting movie. People loved it. I liked it. And then that's followed by Man on Fire coming up on AMC. All right, kids, take care of yourself, take care of others, and most importantly,